Hello there, children. So there are a lot of these shared universe videos on YouTube explaining like how all the Pixar movies are related, or how every TV show ever made is linked by having Richard Belzer in it. Today I thought I would set my sights a little higher by explaining how Neil Gaiman's American Gods and Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell take place in the DC universe. And to do this, I'm going to work backwards. Let's start with Susanna Clarke's book, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's an absolutely fantastic book. I can't recommend it highly enough. And Neil Gaiman not only gave it a glowing book jacket blurb, he helped get it published in the first place. Now, Clarke is a wonderful writer. She deserves all the success in the world, so it's a meritocracy, but knowing Neil Gaiman certainly helps you get into print. Anyways, the novel even got a pretty good television adaptation a year or two back. Now, one of the major supporting characters in the book and the TV series is none other than the Duke of Wellington. The Duke of Wellington also appears, appropriately enough, in Clarke's short story, The Duke of Wellington Misplaces His Horse, which just so happens to take place in the village of Wall, as featured in Neil Gaiman's novel Stardust. Stardust also got its own adaptation, not to a TV series, but into a film which came out about 10 years ago at this point. Now, some people could point out that the Duke of Wellington is a real person, an actual historical character. Therefore, this really shouldn't count. However, Clarke included the story, The Duke of Wellington Misplaces His Horse, in a collection of tales, The Ladies of Grace Adieu. And all the stories in that book relate to Jonathan Strange. So he is very much meant to be the same Duke of Wellington, the same character, or same fictional version of the real guy, I should say. So all of Clarke's books take place in the same universe, and they all take place in the same universe as Stardust, with the village of Wall as their nexus. Now, in addition to the novel Stardust, Neil Gaiman also wrote a short story simply called Wall, which was a prologue to a proposed sequel that he still hasn't gotten around to finishing yet. If you've never heard of this story, then you're really not alone. It's not well known. It first appeared in a limited edition folio set that was released to benefit the wife of Stardust illustrator Charles Vess after she was injured in an auto accident. What's interesting for our purposes is that the focus of the story is a young girl named Jenny Curtin. Now, extremely sharp-eyed readers will notice that Jenny Curtin is referenced in American Gods. She never appears, but her name comes up, and it's implied that she grew up to be a best-selling novelist. So if you're keeping track, this means that American Gods and Anansi Boys, which is also awesome, all take place in this same shared universe along with every other work that I've described so far. Now, among the other Easter eggs hidden in American Gods, fans have pointed out cameos by The Endless, Neil Gaiman's family of immortals that feature heavily in his Sandman comic series. At one point, when a young woman is possessed by Baron Samedi, the voodoo Loa of Death, she starts to look like Neil Gaiman's version of Death: pale skin, dark hair, and a black velvet top hat. In another scene, a girl who sounds a hell of a lot like Delirium is drifting through a park, and at one point, the main character Shadow is in the grips of a deep depression, and he looks into a mirror and feels something staring back at him from the other side. And if you've read Sandman, this is very obviously meant to be the character Despair. Now, smarter folks than I could probably find all 7 of the Endless hidden somewhere in the text of American Gods. But the point is, their presence draws all of these novels and all these works that I've already mentioned into the DC universe. Now, the Sandman series was always kept somewhat at arm's length from the superhero side of the universe, but it is very much part of the same setting. It features appearances from characters like Element Girl, John Constantine, and the inmates of Arkham Asylum. So, there you have it. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell share a universe with Wall, which shares a universe with American Gods, which shares a universe with Sandman and his kin, who share a universe with the goddamn Justice League. Now, Susanna Clarke is still working on her sequel to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but I will say, if it doesn't feature Aquaman and Darkseid, I for one am going to be extremely disappointed.